I think that God certainly knows our thoughts. God searches the hearts and minds of everyone, and that we have no special abilities to disguise our thoughts and feelings and so on. There is supposed to be a puzzle about how anyone could know the things that I know from my perspective. This is not a puzzle that's ever struck me as terribly serious or difficult or profound. If you think hard about what we mean by my first-person perspective or the way the world seems to me, one thing that we're talking about when we talk about that is a repeatable kind. So one part of the way the world seems to me is phenomenal. There's an array of bright light and nice chandeliers and colors and so on. That is a repeatable array of phenomenal qualities. And I'm having it right now. Someone else later today may have exactly the same one. Now, probably not, because our eyes are different, and what we experience is shaped by our expectations and so on. But there's nothing in principle impossible about this very array of phenomenal qualities being repeated in someone else's mind. If you think hard about all the things we might mean by my perspective or the world from my point of view, one thing that you will come upon is a whole bunch of repeatable things like that. The way things phenomenally look, the way my body feels, the sounds that I'm hearing, the way my voice sounds to me from inside. It has a different sound than it does for you. These are all repeatable things that in principle some other person could have them. And I think God can understand them completely, and there's no particular reason to think that in all the normal ways we might use the expression first-person perspective, there's no reason to think that God couldn't know everything about mine. Does God have to have had experiences of these colors and these emotional tones and so on in order to understand them? I don't think so. And there's a very interesting puzzle about emotions like envy and fear and so on. Can those be understood by someone who hasn't had them? Could God have them? Well, it's pretty hard to see how God could have experienced envy, shame, things like that. But I think these emotions can be understood from the outside. And for Christians, there are extra resources here in the sense that the Incarnation, if you think of the Incarnation as kenosis, as an emptying of God's self, of a self-imposed limitation, it appears that Christ did experience desolation and pain and so on. Not shame and guilt, but other sorts of human experiences that involve weakness. We're certainly told that Christ was tempted in all manner as we are tempted, yet was without sin. So one aspect of being a sinner, namely the prelude to sin, temptation, apparently, somehow, as hard as it is to imagine, Christ is said to have understood that and even undergone that. This strikes me as a tremendous mystery, and I'm afraid to even speculate about the proper theological account of that. But what it's like to be a sinner, I think that's something that could be understood from the outside, in the sense that, like Hume's missing shade of blue. If you understand all these other shades, you haven't seen that one, you can imagine it. I can never have felt a certain degree of fear, but in looking at someone who is terribly frightened, we have the ability to simulate these kinds of experiences that we haven't had ourselves, extrapolating from ones that we do understand. God obviously must be able to do that to the highest degree, and even talking that way about God's knowledge is obviously anthropomorphic. I don't see a deep puzzle there. Now, there might be a thought of the form, "I am hungry," that is not identical with any thought that someone else could think. But I think of that in the way that Roderick Chisholm and David Lewis think about first-person thought. It's the self-attribution of a property. It's not a proper proposition, really. And so it's not something that God needs to be able to know.